Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. Got you covered. Traditional league, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. And for today's show, we're pretty much going to do each segment, because obviously now if you're playing in a Yahoo, ESPN, or NFL.com, that's one thing too. I played NFL Fantasy one time, NFL.com on their website. That's the worst one I've played in so far, man. I played in Yahoo and ESPN. I played in ESPN this year in their little fantasy leagues, and I think Yahoo is still my favorite because I feel like Yahoo just gives you way more information than you get from ESPN. Like ESPN, it pretty much the same thing as Yahoo, but Yahoo is just more, way more information, I think, for more helpful and all that. But yeah, I can't stand NFL.com, their whole fantasy thing. But yeah, so now your league's probably over. Either you won your league, came in second, came in third, or just didn't make playoffs. If you did make playoffs, I can't relate to you. I finished in second and third in my leagues. Brutal heartbreak. I lost my semifinal game by 0.6. Thanks a lot, Julio Jones, for that one. And I ended up finishing third in that one, and then I lost in my championship game by a bunch because the guy I was playing was averaging about 150 points a week. But we tried. We did what we could. But now those are all over. So if you're still playing fantasy, it's got to be that daily fantasy, whether it's DraftKings or what's the other one, FanDuel, I think it is. So yeah, you're either doing one of those. So for today's show, we're going to be talking about, for each segment, we're going to be talking about each game and about what players you should pick up from those games and who might help you out. So like I said, for the first segment, we'll probably be doing... We'll start with the games from Saturday. We'll start off with the Chiefs and Titans, and then for the second segment, we'll go with the Falcons and Rams. And then for the third segment, we'll go Bills and Jags. And then for the fourth segment, which is the last of the show, we'll go Saints and Panthers. Yeah, that's the final game. These are all going to be pretty good games too, and I think for the most part they should be pretty high scoring, not like in the 30s or anything like that, but probably in the mid 20s. I think Jacksonville Buffalo, that's going to be the game right there where I'm going to caution you to stay away from. But actually, we'll talk about that one in the third segment. But yeah, we'll talk about that one, talk about how you might want to stay away. I think the Rams and Falcons game has the most fantasy potential, I think, for big points. And even, the two NFC games, I think, have the most potential for big fantasy points, I think. I mean, Tennessee and Kansas City, I think those are going to be, it might depend, actually. So, let's just talk about Tennessee and Kansas City. Let's get into it right now, all right? So, we got the Tennessee Titans heading into Kansas City, facing off with the Chiefs, all right? And both of these teams, kind of stumbled their way into the playoffs. Kansas City was started off hot, and then towards the middle of the season, they kind of cooled off a whole bunch, actually. They really weren't winning too many games. I think they started off, 5-1, I think it was, and we're at 1.6-5, and then they ended up picking it up again, went 4-1 their last 5 games, finished 10-6, so, they're looking pretty good right now, and as far as Tennessee goes, they definitely stumbled their way into the playoffs. I think they finished 9-7, and really, if it wasn't for Marcus Mariota stiff arm on 3rd and 5 in the Jaguars game, you don't see Tennessee's not making the playoffs. So, they got him to thank for that, and really big play for Marcus Mariota to make there. Especially from a franchise quarterback, you're going to have to make those plays. But, both of these teams, as far as fantasy football go, they do have a couple of options for who to pick up and who not to pick up, I guess, in this game. So, I guess let's just get it started now. All right, so let's start off with the Chiefs. You got Alex Smith, who has probably had his best year of his career, but really cooled off towards the end of the season wasn't really the guy who's throwing for too many yards or touchdowns like he was in the beginning of the season. But I think Alex Smith in this game could be a solid starter. Could be a solid fantasy starter in this game, all right? And Tennessee, they do have a decent secondary, but I think Alex Smith is, like, I just have his gut feeling that Alex Smith is going to play really well in this one. All right, I think he's going to throw at least I'm going to go at least two touchdowns at least for Alex Smith in this game right here. I think he's going to find Travis Kelce for one, possibly two. Alex Smith, I mean, in the playoffs, he's been so-so, but I just think that this year, especially with because obviously, let me backtrack a little bit, all right? So they drafted Patrick Mahomes from Texas Tech this year in the draft, and it's been looking like after this year, they're going to be getting rid of Alex Smith. And Patrick Mahomes will be the guy next year. So, I mean, for this year this year's playoffs, Alex Smith has to go out there and pretty much play for other teams, like pretty much like a trial right here for other teams to sign him, because obviously, like I said, he's probably going to be a free agent next year, and you're going to want a big contract. So I think Alex Smith is going to come out slinging the ball in these playoffs with nothing to lose, and I think it's going to be the Alex Smith from the beginning of the year that we're about to see. I think that's going to be a big thing on his mind, because obviously, like I said, it's going to be Mahomes. It's looking like next year. So I think Alex Smith is going to go for I'm going to go at least 300 yards in this game and at least a couple of touchdowns, if not more. And like I said, I think Kansas City is just all around going to come out and play well. So yeah, if you're thinking about picking Alex Smith up in your daily fantasy league, I'd go ahead and go with him. And then same with Kareem Hunt. Or actually, I don't know about Kareem Hunt. That's kind of iffy right there, because Tennessee does have one of the better rush defenses in the league. I think they had the fourth, or I think they had a top 5 rush defense in the league. And Kareem Hunt, if you remember, he's pretty much like Alex Smith, right? He started off hot in the beginning of the year, middle of the season comes, and then he kind of cools off a bit. And then once the end of the season's coming, I mean, he starts to play well. He's been playing really well these last couple of games. And I think his biggest problem in the middle of the season when he was cooling off was that Andy Reid just wasn't getting him the ball enough. And he just wasn't able to do enough with that. And I think he was injured for a couple of games too. He didn't miss any games, but I think he was he had like an ankle injury or a hamstring injury he was playing through. So he had that. So I mean, Kareem Hunt just, and this one, I mean, it's like, I'm not too sure if I'd go with Kareem Hunt in this one. I think this is going to be an Alex Smith game right here. I think Kareem Hunt, he could go for a touchdown maybe, but I just don't think that he's going to have the type of he's not going to have a big game in this one, I think. So I think I'm going to stay away from Kareem Hunt. Man, that's kind of bold right there. I mean, obviously you're going to need the best players out here. So yeah, I think I'm not going with Kareem Hunt, so I'm going to stay away. Like I said, Tennessee has a solid rush defense, and I think that they're going to come out and play, especially since no one's giving Tennessee respect in this game either, especially not me. I don't think Tennessee's going to be able to do anything, but I think if anyone's going to show up, it's going to be that rush defense. So, yeah, I'm staying away from Kareem Hunt. As for the wide receivers, the only one you can really pick up is Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill is a hit and miss, I feel. Let me see if I can pull up his stats from the last few games from him. But I mean, Tyreek Hill, like, he's always good for one deep ball game, and it's really up to Alex Smith whether or not he's going to be able to pull it down. But I think, I'm not too sure how Tennessee's secondary has been so far this season. Let me see, against Miami, because I'm not going to really count the game last week because Chiefs really didn't play too many other starters. Against Miami, Tyreek Hill had 6 catches, 109 yards. And then let's see, against the Chargers, I think he had a big game against the Chargers too. He burned Casey Hayward in the game. Just ran right past him. Yeah, against the Chargers, he had 5 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. Let's see, a game before that against the Raiders. Let's see, how did he do? That's the game where the Raiders really didn't show up at all. Against the Raiders, he had 4 receptions, 75 yards. You know what? I'm going to go, yeah. If you're thinking about picking up Tyreek Hill in your daily fantasy, I pick him up. I think he's going to go for a big game, and I think he's going to play well. He's been pretty consistent all year, and he's going to get you those yards. He's going to get you at least 75 yards a game, and it really just all comes down to him getting that touchdown. And I think he's going to be able to do well against his Tennessee secondary. He's got the speed to do it, and I think he's got the hands to do it too. So, yeah, if you're thinking about picking up Tyreek Hill, I'd go with him. And as far as Travis Kelce goes, I feel like that's a must pickup right there. Travis Kelce's been one of the more consistent tight ends in all the league this season. He's averaging around not a touchdown a game or anything like that, but averaging around 75 yards a game, I think, 85 yards. He's always good for at least 5 receptions, I feel. So I think he's going to go out for a big game right here, especially with Alex Smith. If I think Alex Smith is going to be playing well, I mean, obviously when Alex Smith plays well, Travis Kelce is the one who benefits from it the most. So yeah, if you're thinking about picking up Travis Kelce, because I know in daily fantasy you got to worry about the prices and all that, but I think Travis Kelce is a must start in this game too. I think he's going to be playing really well. I think he'll go for around 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns, I feel. So yeah, we'll see how he does. As for the Kansas City defense, I think for Kansas City's defense, I think if you need like a defense, you're out of money for picking. Like you can't pick up a team like Jacksonville's defense, or you can't pick up Carolina's defense or anything like that, or the Rams. Then I think Kansas City's defense would be a safe bet right here, because I don't think really Marcus Mariota is going to play too well in this playoff game. Marcus Mariota's had a down year so far this season. He throws a lot of interceptions, hasn't thrown for too many touchdowns, and he's not picking up a bunch of yards. So, I mean, Kansas City's defense, if you're looking for one, then I think that's the one right there to go in order to build up the rest of your team. So, yeah, Kansas City's defense, I feel, is going to be a solid pickup this week, and I think Marcus Peters is going to have a big game. He'll probably go for an interception or two, maybe. I think Marcus Mariota is going to throw at least one, so we'll see about that. And with DeMarco, like talking about Tennessee now, I mean, DeMarco Murray, he's going to be out of this game, so Derrick Henry might be a go-to running back for you if you need to pick someone up in that little running back 2 spot right there. DeMarco Murray, he could be good. Derrick Henry, excuse me. But, yeah, Kansas City's defense, like I said, they really haven't played well so far this season. And the only reason why I said I'd pick them up is because I just don't think Marcus Mariota is going to play well in this game. So, obviously, that's what I had to say about Marcus Mariota right there. Before I even get into Derrick Henry, Marcus Mariota, I don't think he's going to throw for many touchdowns or anything like that. He might get one, but if that right there. And I think he's going to throw at least a couple of interceptions, because he just really hasn't been able to make good decisions so far this season. And like you said, he hasn't thrown for many yards. So, that's why I'm going with Kansas City's defense. And obviously, if you're thinking about picking Marcus Mariota, I'd stay away from him. And like I said, Derrick Henry, I think that's going to be a solid pickup right there. Kansas City's rush defense really hasn't played well so far this season. He could go for a touchdown, Derrick Henry, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how it is. But like I said, if you need a running back in your number 2 slot, then I'd go Derrick Henry. But I think he could have a good game, but we'll see. And as far as Tennessee's receivers go, I really, just because of the fact I don't trust Marcus Mariota, I don't trust Tennessee's receivers at all. I mean, Rashard Matthews, he's been all right this year, but just not good enough to pick up, I don't think, in a playoff game, especially if you're playing in the daily fantasy. I just don't think that either of those guys are good to pick up. Maybe Delaney Walker, if you need a tight end, low-budget tight end, maybe pick him up. That's Marcus Mariota's favorite player to throw to right there by far. So, if you're thinking about picking up a tight end, Delaney Walker could be a solid pickup, but really I'm kind of iffy about anyone on that Tennessee offense. And even Derrick Henry, too. Like I said, if you need a running back in your 2 spot, then pick him up. But I'm kind of iffy about him, too. I'm not too sure how well he's going to do or how well he's going to play. So, I mean, it really just all comes down to whether or not Kansas City's defense shows up a little bit. But we'll see how it all ends up. Like I said, though, if you need a tight end, Delaney Walker is good. Travis Kelce from Kansas City is good. And pretty much anyone on Kansas City's offense besides, obviously, Albert Wilson or anything like that, and even Kareem Hunt. Like I said, I'm staying away from him, but Alex Smith, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, those are guys who are going to put up some numbers on Saturday. So if you need anyone from there, I'd pick them up. And like I said, if you need a low-budget defense, I'm going with Kansas City's defense too. But that's all I got to say about those 2 teams right there. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Falcons and LA Rams game. That's going to be a fun one to talk about right there. There's a lot of fantasy upside in that game. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm really excited for these games we got coming up this week. I think there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games. I mean, the only one that's not really going to be high-scoring, like I said earlier in the first segment, is going to be Buffalo versus Jacksonville. But we're going to talk about that one more in the next segment. But for this one, we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Falcons and LA Rams game. But before we even get into that, let's recap the last segment. We talked about the Titans and Chiefs game, and there's a couple of the only real fantasy upside from that game is coming from Kansas City's offense and maybe their defense. Like I said, if you need a low-budget defense, because Alex Smith, I think he's gonna have a big game. He's gonna need to play well in the playoffs in order for him to pretty much get a nice contract next season. Because like I said, I think that Kansas City is going to end up going with Patrick Mahomes unless somehow Alex Smith just breaks out in these playoffs and plays extremely well. But I think Kansas City is just ready for Mahomes, so we're going to have to wait and see about that. So I think Alex Smith is going to play well against this Titans team. I said he's going to go for at least possibly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't think he'll throw any interceptions or anything like that. Alex Smith is really smart with the ball. And I think Kareem Hunt, I think that's someone where kind of going out on a limb here. I don't think you should really pick him up this week. I think Tennessee's rush defense is going to play well, and it's going to come down to Alex Smith playing well, and I think he's going to, like I said. So obviously that means you got to pick up Tyreek Hill, who I think is going to go for at least 75 yards and a touchdown probably. I mean, he's been real consistent in these last few weeks, and the same with Travis Kelce. He's been one of the best tight ends so far this season, and he is one of the best tight ends in the league. So if you need someone out of there, I'd definitely go Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce's a must start too. Like I said, he's going to go for at least 100 yards and a touchdown, I think. And like I said, Kansas City's defense is going to be a solid pickup because I think Marcus Mariota, who you shouldn't pick up, is going to throw at least a couple of interceptions. Probably will throw a touchdown maybe, but he won't throw for too many yards. And Derrick Henry, if you're just hurting for a running back, that might be the way to go. But I mean, I don't trust Tennessee's offense all too much, especially I don't think Marcus Mariota is playing well. I mean, I think Delaney Walker will get his fair share of production, but I just don't trust Tennessee in this game at all. So, I mean, it's up to you, but like I said, I'm really leaning more towards Kansas City side of the ball as far as fantasy go. And if you want to be bold or you just need someone to pick up, then yeah, go ahead head over to Tennessee and pick up someone like Derrick Henry. But for sure, do not pick up Marcus Mariota. That's someone I just do not trust this week. But let's get into this LA Rams and Atlanta Falcons game. Obviously, this game is going to be on LA. Should be good weather game, so the ball is going to be flying, and pretty much there's not going to be no bad weather football, so it's going to be a pretty good game played throughout. And Atlanta, they've been a weird team as far as fantasy football goes. I had Julio Jones in one of my leagues, and I mean, that's a guy right there. You draft him, you expect him to be the most consistent player on your team, but it just wasn't happening for him this season. And I mean, he had that one 253-yard receiving game where he had a couple of touchdowns too that he brought him. And other than that, I mean, it was really just pure inconsistency from him. He just really wasn't doing enough, wasn't consistently getting 100-yard receiving games, and just wasn't bringing it in. I think this might have been one of his worst seasons as far as touchdowns go. He just really wasn't wasn't the Julio Jones that we expect him to be. I mean, the guy's got all the talent in the world, but I don't know if it's because of how Atlanta was running their offense or just Julio Jones just wasn't in it this season. But I mean, yeah, he's just been a tough guy to pick in fantasy and to lean on. And Devontae Freeman, he didn't start off the year too hot, but towards the end of the year, he started getting really better. It's because I think it's had more to do with the fact that he's starting to get the ball a whole lot more. Because if I remember for a bunch of games, I mean, him and Tevin Coleman were only getting about 20 carries combined, and that's simply not enough for Devontae Freeman to go out and do his thing. And then eventually, like I said, he started getting the ball a whole lot more, started getting the ball about 15 to 20 times, and like I said, he's been playing a whole lot better, scoring a lot more touchdowns and getting a whole bunch of yards. So, I mean, that might be... I think he could be a solid pickup against the Rams this week. And Matt Ryan, last year was the MVP. This year, looked nothing like he did last year. I think that has to do just really with how the offense has been run. And I've been telling everyone that's been Steve Sarkisian. I mean, last year you had Kyle Shanahan, and he made that offense look like one of the best of all time. One of the best offenses of all time last year. They were scoring points, and pretty much no one could keep up with them. And this season, I mean, it's pretty much night and day. They're only averaging about 20 points a game. And I think, like, obviously you could think maybe it's because Kyle Shanahan leaving. I mean, obviously with him being the offensive coordinator last year, maybe that the talent isn't all there, but I don't think that's the case. I think really it's been Steve Sarkisian holding them back. I mean, the talent is there, and they obviously have the ability to put up points, but it's just for some reason the offensive coordinator just hasn't put him in the right positions to go out and score. So, I mean, I think this game it might change though. I mean, I'm not sure about the Falcons, honestly. Like, I want to believe that they're going to go out and play well and put up a bunch of points just because of the weapons they have. They got Tevin Coleman, who is a really good running back out the backfield, or obviously out the backfield, but I mean, talking about pass catching back too. And then you got Devontae Freeman, who's been playing well the last part of the season. And Mohamed Sanu, who's been a solid option. Also, I think Matt Ryan has been looking at him a whole lot more than he usually has the last couple of seasons. And even with Matt Ryan, I mean, he could always break out for a big game, but there's always that chance you're taking to where, you know what, Matt Ryan just might not play all that well. He might only throw for 200 yards and a touchdown. I mean, no interceptions, but 200 yards and a touchdown isn't going to take you very far. So, I mean, as far as Atlanta goes in fantasy, I mean, the Rams have one of the better defenses in the league, so I mean, it's really tough to trust any Falcons players, honestly. I mean, Devontae Freeman, I think he's going to have a decent game this week, and the Rams' rush defense really just hasn't, like, they're good, but I mean, they do give up a bunch of yards, and I think Devontae Freeman is just that good of a player to where it doesn't matter. You throw him back there, he's going to do his thing and play well. So I mean, if you need a running back, I think Devontae Freeman would be a good option. Tevin Coleman, I mean, there's always that little player who breaks out in the playoffs, and I think that could be Tevin Coleman, but I mean, that's pretty much if you're desperate to have running back and you need someone to just plug in there. And as far as Julio Jones goes, I think LA is going to have just a solid game plan for him. They're just going to double him up the entire time, and it's going to force Matt Ryan to look other ways. So, I mean, I'm staying away from Julio Jones this week. I know he's one of the better receivers in the league, but I just don't think he has it this season. I think teams are starting to game plan for him a whole lot better. And like I said, just Steve Sarkisian is keeping him out of it. So, I mean, obviously with Julio Jones being double, I think Mohamed Sanu could be a solid player to pick up in this game. I think he could go for a touchdown possibly in this one. And as far as Matt Ryan goes, I mean, that's pretty much a hit or miss right there. It's pretty much flip of the coin. If it lands on heads, then you take him. If it lands on tails, then you just leave him. I can't trust this Atlanta Falcons offense at all. They haven't shown me that they can do what they did last season. I don't think they're going to be able to do it against one of the better defenses in the league. So, I mean, I'm staying away from most of them. I mean, Devontae Freeman, like I said, he's going to be a solid option to pick up this week. I think he could have a good game. Matt Ryan, I mean, like I said, it's just a hit or miss right there. Julio Jones, I'm going to stay away from him this week. Mohamed Sanu, that's going to be a good second or third option on your team if you need someone to pick up. And, I mean, as far as the defense goes, I think I'm not sure, honestly, about the defense. They've been playing well all season, but, I mean, how are they going to stop Todd Gurley? And if they're able to stop Todd Gurley, I mean, you still got to worry about Jared Goff. And let's just move on to the Rams right here. Let's talk about them. Maybe I'll make my decision on Atlanta's defense. But, yeah, Todd Gurley, I mean, I feel like that's a must start every week. Like, if you have the money in daily fantasy to pick him up in that little budget thing that they give you, pick up Todd Gurley. I mean, the guy is a clear number one back, okay? And the best thing about Todd Gurley, too, is that he's not just dependent on running the ball. Like, if he's not doing well running the ball, then he's going to have a bad game. No, that's not the case with him at all. If Todd Gurley isn't running the ball all that well, then you could always just look to him in the receiving part. Jared Goff is always going to look to get Todd Gurley into the game because, you know what, if Todd Gurley's not playing well at all, then the Browns really have no chance on offense to be in the game. So, I mean, Todd Gurley, that's a must start right there. And then as for Jared Goff, this is going to be his first playoff experience right here. Last year's a rookie offseason. Obviously, he's in his second year now. So, I mean, I'm not too sure how much you could trust Jared Goff in this game. I mean, he's played well at home, and that's one thing with the Rams, too. They play, on offense, they play extremely well at home. Like, with Robert Woods, you got him who on the road he's really kind of been missing, but at home, I mean, there's just something about him playing at the LA Coliseum. Remember, he did go to USC, and he was one of their better receivers while he was there, probably the best receiver while he was there. And it's just, like I said, there's something about playing at the LA Coliseum where Robert Woods just goes off, plays well. So, I mean, Robert Woods, that could be a guy right there to look for. And also, Cooper Kupp. If you need one of those guys who, I'm not sure if in daily fantasy they do like PPR leagues or anything like that, but Cooper Kupp, that could be a solid starter right there for your team if you're looking for someone like a third option or second option maybe. Cooper Kupp, he gets a lot of receptions and he gets plenty of yards. The only downside to him is he didn't score too many touchdowns, but I think he's going to have a big game. Like I said, with Tevin Coleman, I mean, there's always those players in the playoffs who are going to break out and play well, and I think Cooper Kupp could be one of those players who breaks out and plays well. So if you're thinking about picking up Cooper Kupp, I'd do it. Robert Woods, I'm not too sure because you got Desmond Trufant out there playing cornerback, and he's one of the better corners in the league, so you got to worry about him. But then again, like I said, they're going to be playing at home, and Robert Woods always does play well at home. And then going back to Jared Goff, I mean, I think Jared Goff could throw for a couple. I think he's going to throw for a couple of touchdowns, maybe 3, if that, but 2 touchdowns I think he's going to get for sure. And really the only thing you got to worry about is just his yards. Is he going to throw for more than 300 yards? I don't think so. I think he could go from anywhere from 200 to 250, but if you're trying to win some money in these daily fantasy leagues, I don't think Jared Goff is the guy you want to go to battle with, especially in his first playoff game too. I mean, it's going to be tough for him. Falcons, they were there last year. They know what it takes to make it to a Super Bowl, so they're going to be experienced and ready. And I know people like to say, oh, experience doesn't matter, but it does. I mean, honestly, if you're actually, that makes me think too about who I'm going to pick for the shows going on, because like I said, experience matters in these playoffs no matter what anyone else says. You're going to need a guy who because this is a big moment, especially for Jared Goff. I mean, he just can't let the moment get bigger than him, and I'm not too sure if he's going to be able to do that. I think the Rams, they're a great team on offense, but I'm not too sure if they're ready for this type of moment. First playoff game in LA in a while, okay? First playoff game for the Rams in a while, for being honest here. You got a rookie head coach, Sean McVay, one of the younger coaches in the league, and I mean, it's all going to come down to whether or not the moment's going to be too big for them. I think Jared Goff, like I said, I still think he's going to go for a couple of touchdowns, 200 yards at least, maybe 250, but I'm not sure if he's going to throw for any interceptions or anything like that. That's one thing you got to watch out for in a second-year quarterback playing in his first playoff game. But like I said, as far as the Rams offense goes, I'm going with Todd Gurley 10 times out of 10. I think he's going to have a good game. And I think you can go with the Falcons defense. I think Todd Gurley is going to be the only one who goes off in that game, and I think the Falcons defense is going to do well to limit everyone else, because I mean, other than Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, I mean, the Rams really don't have too many weapons. Obviously, not talking about Todd Gurley. He's obviously the one guy that we all know is going to have a good game. But, I mean, I'm not too sure if Robert Woods is going to be able to do too much against Desmond Trufant. And like I said, Cooper Kupp, he could go for a lot of receptions and yards, but, I mean, it's been hard for him to find the end zone, so we're going to have to see about that. And as far as the Rams defense goes, I think that could be a solid start right there. Because like I said, Matt Ryan against his defense, he's probably going to throw a couple interceptions. Maybe he'll probably go for 1 interception. And like I said, I mean, Julio Jones, he's going to get doubled. So I don't think Julio Jones is really going to do too much against this defense. And Mohamed Sanu, I mean, he could have a touchdown. But, I mean, that's a big if right there. So I'm going to start the Rams defense in this one. If you're thinking about picking them up, I think that's a good solid pickup right there. Same with Kansas City's defense. If you want to spend some money on the Rams defense, pick them up. And if you want to go for position players, skill players, then go with Kansas City's. But I think right now the only solid players right here in this game are going to be Devontae Freeman, Todd Gurley, and I guess either team's defenses. Honestly, I mean, there's not really too much. Like, it's gonna be a game in the mid-20s, but I just don't think that it's gonna be like a big touchdown game, if that makes any sense. I don't know. It's just like a weird game for me right here. Obviously, someone's gonna have to score, but I just don't think fantasy-wise it's gonna be enough to help you win your game. So I mean, that's all I got to say about that game right there. Again, I mean, Devontae Freeman, I think it's going to be a solid start. Same with Todd Gurley and both defenses. But other than that, it's pretty much a toss-up between whoever else you want. Like Julio Jones, I'm staying away from him for sure. Matt Ryan, that might be... I'd go more with a quarterback. If it was between Alex Smith and Matt Ryan, so I was talking about Alex Smith in the last segment. If I had to choose between Alex Smith and Matt Ryan, I'm going with Alex Smith 10 times out of 10. I just think that Alex Smith is the guy you want to go for if you're deciding between a quarterback, and especially against Matt Ryan, I'll take Alex Smith. So, like I said, that's all I got to say about this game right here. Next up, we'll be talking about the Buffalo Bills and Jacksonville Jaguars game. That's going to be a fun one to talk about, because we're really going to think about anyone who's going to be able to put up some points in fantasy, because both these teams got solid defenses, and but Sean McCoy's not playing, then you know what? Let's just save it for the next segment. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. And as I know for the last few shows that we've done or whatever, we recapped the last segment. But for this one, since it's wild card weekend and like I said, normal fantasy season's over as far as having drafting your team or whatever, that's done. So now you're pretty much playing daily fantasy if you're still playing fantasy football. So pretty much I'm gonna recap the last two segments since you're gonna have to pick. But I think how it works in daily fantasy is where you got to pick guys for the weekend and see how they do. So yeah, we're going to recap each segment that we do. So for the last segment, we recapped the first one, but since we're on our third segment, we're going to recap the first and second, if that makes any sense. So like I said, for the first segment, I was talking about how Alex Smith is going to be a solid starter and if how you should start him over Matt Ryan if you were deciding. I'm staying away from Marcus Mariota, like I said. Derrick Henry, that's a risky move right there. DeMarco Murray is not going to be playing, so Derrick Henry could get around 15 to 20 carries in this game. I'm staying away from all the Titans receivers. Maybe Delaney Walker if I need a tight end, but that's kind of iffy right there too. Tyreek Hill is going to be someone I'm starting also. Same with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is a must start right there. I think he's even more so than Tyreek Hill. I think Travis Kelce is going to have a big game, especially since I think Alex Smith is going to play well. And I'm also staying away from Kareem Hunt too. Tennessee has a good rush defense, so I really don't think too much of him this week. And as far as Kansas City's defense goes, I think they're going to have a solid game this week. I think Marcus Mariota is going to go for a couple interceptions. I don't think Kansas City is going to give up too many points, so that's going to be a solid defense to pick up right there. And like I said, for Atlanta, Devontae Freeman, I think he's going to have a decent game too. Matt Ryan, like I said, I really don't trust him too much this week, so if you were deciding between a guy like Alex Smith and Matt Ryan, go with Alex Smith. And I'm staying away from Julio Jones. I don't think he's going to have a big game. Mohamed Sanu, if you need a third or second receiver, that'd be a good pickup. Atlanta's defense, that could... I don't trust them. I'd go with Kansas City's defense over Atlanta's. And, I'd go with Kansas City's defense over Atlanta's for sure. Kansas City against LA's defense, I'll probably go with LA. And speaking about LA, if you're thinking about picking up Todd Gurley for this weekend, I think he's going to be a solid pickup right there. He's going to go for at least 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns, I think. He's pretty good. He's been so consistent this year. Probably the best year of his career so far. So, yeah, and same with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. If you need a second or third receiver, those might be the guys right there that you pick up. But other than that, Jared Goff, I'm not trusting him too much in his first playoff game. It's more of a wait and see type of thing with him. So, if you're thinking about picking up Jared Goff, Alex Smith, or Matt Ryan, go with Alex Smith. And like I said, stay away from Marcus Mariota. Stay away. All right. For this next game, we're going to be talking about, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars and Buffalo Bills. No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Shout out to Chris Berman. All right, so for this game, this is probably the last, the game with the least fantasy upside right here. And who do we want to start off with? Let's start off with the Bills. So, LaShawn McCoy, it's not known if he's going to be playing. He got carted off against Miami in Week 17 with an ankle injury. Oops, sorry, I had the hiccup right there. But he got carted off with an ankle injury, and I'm not sure if he's going to be back this week. And even if he does come back this week, I'm not sure I'd even start him against Jacksonville's defense. I know Jacksonville's defense is kind of let up the last couple of weeks, but I think they're going to be ready in the playoffs. It's going to be the first playoff game, I think, in Jacksonville since 2007 or 2009, I believe. And I think Jacksonville's defense is going to be ready to go. And you know what? Talking about Jacksonville's defense, let's just do it right here. All right. So we're going to talk about Buffalo's offense and Jacksonville's defense right here, and then after that we'll talk a little bit about Jacksonville's offense. All right, so Tyrod Taylor, if LaShawn McCoy does not play in this game, then I'm staying away from Tyrod Taylor 100%. I'm staying away from anyone on this Buffalo Bills offense. I don't think that this is going to be a good game for them at all unless LaShawn McCoy plays. And like I said, even if he plays, it's kind of iffy. Tyrod Taylor needs LaShawn McCoy in this game in order to do what Tyrod Taylor does in order to be the most productive. So, let's talk hypotheticals. All right, let's talk about if LaShawn McCoy plays in this game. I still don't trust Tyrod Taylor enough. Tyrod Taylor doesn't turn the ball over really, but he's not going to throw for a bunch of yards or anything like that. He's not going to throw for too many touchdowns. And LaShawn McCoy is really being the touchdown scorer of that team. And like I said, with LaShawn McCoy, if he does play, he's still going to be playing on a bad ankle without a doubt. There's no way it's going to be at 100%. So, you still got to worry about Tyrod Taylor being able to get you down the field near the goal line in order for LaShawn McCoy to score, because I don't think LaShawn McCoy is going to be able to break off for a bunch of chunk yards on his runs. I just don't think Jacksonville's that type of defense that's going to let you do that. They're going to try and limit you as much as they can. And I think especially if LaShawn McCoy plays on a bad ankle, they're going to be able to do that. So, I mean, it's all going to come down. Like, LaShawn McCoy's fantasy play, it's going to come down to whether or not Tyrod Taylor can lead the Bills down the field, because if he can, LaShawn McCoy really just has no chance, because like I said, he's not going to be able to do it on his own against this defense. If I'm Jacksonville, I'm stacking the box against this Buffalo Bills offense, and I'm forcing Tyrod Taylor to beat me through the air, and I just don't think he can do that. And I mean, as far as Buffalo's receivers go, Kelvin Benjamin and Kelvin Benjamin, and who's the other one? I think Kelvin Benjamin is just the top receiver right now. They got Zay Jones too, but I mean, Tyrod Taylor, yeah, that's one thing right there. I'm not picking up Kelvin Benjamin this week. I'm pretty much staying away from the entire Buffalo Bills offense, for being honest. I mean, they got Nick O'Leary, the tight end, who's been playing well this season, but just not a solid fantasy football tight end. And Charles Clay, he's kind of hit or miss too, and I just think he's going to be a big miss this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm pretty much staying away from anyone on Buffalo's offense. I just don't think anyone's there. I just think Buffalo, they're not going to get more than... They won't score more than 13 points, I don't think. I'm going to put that as a cap right there. They're not going to score more than 13 points. If you need someone on Buffalo's offense, I guess special teams don't even count. But if you need someone, I'm going with Steven Hauschka as a kicker, because that's the only way Buffalo's really going to be able to score. I just don't think Jacksonville's defense is going to be able to, or they're not going to be able to do anything against Jacksonville's defense. And now we're talking about Jacksonville's defense. I mean, pick them up. That's a starting defense right there, always. Jacksonville's defense in fantasy so far this season has just been lights out, always giving you around 15 points a game, 20 points. So, I mean, Jacksonville's defense in this game especially, I'm going with Jacksonville's defense, and I'm picking them up. I'll pick them up over Kansas City's. I'd pick them up over LA's, and I'd definitely pick them up over Atlanta's. I just think Jacksonville's defense can have a big game here. They could possibly score a touchdown on defense. They've been known to do that this season. So, I mean, Jacksonville's defense will be a solid pickup this week. And as far as Jacksonville's offense goes, I'm not sure how much I trust Blake Bortles, if at all. I mean, his last 2 weeks, he's just played poorly, like the worst he's played all season. And this is the worst possible time he could pick to play poorly. And Buffalo's defense, I mean, both of these teams' defense, Jacksonville's and Buffalo's defense, those could be solid pickups, I think. I don't trust Tyrod Taylor against Jacksonville's defense, and I for sure don't trust Blake Bortles against anyone's defense. I think Blake Bortles is probably going to throw an interception or two in this one. I think it's going to be an ugly game as far as scoring goes. I mean, Leonard Fournette and Jacksonville's defense is the most surefire thing you could, more surefire players / special teams defense, what do you want to call that, you could pick up in your daily fantasy this week. I think Leonard Fournette's going to go for 100 yards at least and a touchdown. So, yeah, if you're thinking about picking up Leonard Fournette, do that too. I mean, Leonard Fournette and Devontae Freeman, I feel, would be a solid 1-2 punch right there for your fantasy team. And, yeah, I just feel Leonard Fournette, that's probably the most surefire thing on Jacksonville's offense. And going back to Blake Bortles, I mean, I'd stay away from Blake Bortles this week. I'd even go with Marcus Mariota over Blake Bortles this week. I just don't trust Blake Bortles at that much at all right now. And, I mean, he's going to have to complete some passes. Honestly, he might throw for a touchdown. So maybe if you're thinking about going for a guy like D.D. Westbrook, I'm not sure if Marquise Lee is still injured or whatnot, if he came back. But, I mean, Marquise Lee, if he's back, and D.D. Westbrook, those are guys right there that could have decent games. And Allen Hurns played all right last week, too. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how Jacksonville's offense does. But like I said, I'm going with Leonard Fournette this week. I think that's going to be a solid option in fantasy. I think he's going to break out for a big game. And like I said, both of these teams' defenses, you can pick up either one. I think you'd be fine. I think they'd be able to pick up, drop at least 10 points at least. Jacksonville at least 15 points without a doubt. But as far as Buffalo's defense goes, I think Blake Bortles is going to gift them at least a few interceptions. So, I mean, I'd go with Buffalo's defense. I'd go with Jacksonville's defense. If I had to rank the defenses I've talked about so far, which would be maybe 6 defenses, I'd go Jacksonville's at number 1. Then I'd go Kansas City's at number 2, just for this week, too. I'm not ranking them just based off of play. I'm just talking about this week as far as getting you points. I go Kansas City at number 2, then Buffalo at 3, I'll go LA at 3, Buffalo at 4, Atlanta at 5, and then Tennessee at 6. those are my top 6 defenses so far. I know we're going to add in 2 more defenses in the next segment. We're talking about Carolina and New Orleans, but I mean, going back to this game, it's just going to be a real low-scoring game. Stay away from Blake Bortles. Stay away from Tyrod Taylor. Stay away from LaShawn McCoy. Stay away from pretty much anyone on the Buffalo Bills offense. The only person really you could think about picking up on Jacksonville's offense is Leonard Fournette and Marquise Lee and Dede Westbrook, because I think Blake Bortles is going to have to at least throw for a touchdown. It's going to be to either one of those guys. So, like I said, I think if you need a receiver, like a third option right there, then go with Dede Westbrook. I think he's been highly targeted the last few games, so I'd go with him over Marquise Lee, I feel. So that's all I got to say about that game. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints game. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Been a bit of a fun show so far. We've been talking about each game. So yeah, we've talking about each game going on in the wild card weekend. We're about to wrap up this segment we'll start this segment with the Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints game, which I think, let's see, which game has the most potential for just huge fantasy points? I think it might be this game between the New Orleans Saints and Carolina Panthers. I think Alvin Kamara is going to have a big game. Or, you know, I'm not even going to get into it right now. I'll wait talking about it. I got to recap the segments before this first. So, talking about it. So, I've been talking about, like how I said, Alex Smith. That's going to be a solid pickup right there. A solid starter right there. I think he's going to go for at least 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's going to have a big game. Same with Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce, that's definitely a must start this week. He's going to have at least 100 yards and a touchdown. I will lock that down right now. I have no doubt about it. Travis Kelce's going to have a big game. And Kansas City's defense, I think that could be a solid, sneaky start right there. I think they haven't really played all too well so far this season, but they do force a lot of turnovers, and I don't think Marcus Mariota or Derrick Henry are going to be able to put up too many yards or touchdowns on them. And then, like I said, if Marcus Mariota and Derrick Henry aren't playing well, then I'm just going to stay away from all the Tennessee receivers. Delaney Walker might be a starter, might be a guy we could think about, but I really just don't trust Tennessee's offense this week. I just don't trust Tennessee at all, to be honest. And that's like I was talking about the Falcons and Rams game. I said if it came down to Alex Smith, Matt Ryan, and Jared Goff for quarterbacks you needed to start, I'm going Alex Smith the entire way. Honestly, I trust Alex Smith more than any of the quarterbacks I've talked about so far in this show. I've talked about Smith, Mariota, Ryan, Goff, Bortles, Tyrod Taylor. I think Alex Smith might be the best option this week in fantasy. We'll wait about talking about the Saints. Let me just recap real quick. I want to get into this Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints game. I think it's gonna be a fun one to talk about right here. But like I said, I trust Alex Smith more than the quarterbacks I've talked about so far. I rank my defenses so far that I've talked about. I got Jacksonville being the number 1 defense to pick up. Then Kansas City's, I believe I said. Then LA's, Buffalo's. Then Atlanta's and the Tennessee's at dead last. And then, like I said, Todd Gurley, that's a must start this week, I feel. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp could be guys if you need like a second or third option. Maybe you could pick them up. Julio Jones, I'm staying away from him this week. Same with Kareem Hunt. I don't trust them this week. Kareem Hunt, I mean, he hasn't really done anything to show why you shouldn't trust him, but I feel like Tennessee's rush defense is going to show up and play well this week. And let's see, who else are we missing? I think that's pretty much it right there. Like I said, I'm not really trusting Jared Goff too much in his first playoff game of his career. And Matt Ryan, I mean, you never know when this Atlanta Falcons offense is going to show up. But Devontae Freeman, I think he's going to have a solid game too. So Devontae Freeman might be someone like you pick up Devontae Freeman and start him with a guy like Leonard Fournette. That'd be a nice little 1-2 combo right there for your fantasy team. I think Devontae Freeman could go for a couple of touchdowns, probably just one, but I think he'll go for around 90 yards also because LA's rush defense hasn't been the best this season, so we'll see all about it. But let's talk about this Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints game. All right, so who do I want to start off with? Let me start off with the Carolina Panthers. All right, so obviously, big game right here. Wild card game, obviously big game. Winner goes moves on, loser goes home. You know who plays well in big games? Cameron Newton. Not even sure if his first name's Cameron, but I figured I'd just say it like that. But yeah, Cam Newton always shows up in big games, always plays well. I know, let me double check his stats last week. I think last week, I might be contradicting myself because he didn't really play too well last week, but let's see how he did. Let me pull it up real quick. Let's see real quick. Going to take a few moments. Here we go. But yeah, Cam Newton, I mean, he's always a guy that you can depend on, I feel, especially in a big game. Like I said last week, I mean, Carolina, they only put up 10 points. Cam Newton played poorly last week. Cam, you're letting me down right now. He had 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Oh my gosh. And also had 59 yards rushing the ball. I still think even with that bad game last week, I still think that Cam Newton's going to play well this week. All right, because I think, like I said, New Orleans, they have a good defense, but I just think Cam Newton, like this is going to be the game where he shows up. It's going to be the typical Cam Newton game right here. He's going to score at least 3 touchdowns, whether it be 2 through the air and 1 on the ground or 2 on the ground, 1 through the air. I think he's going to come up with at least 3 touchdowns. Not going to throw for a bunch of yards. Might hit 250, if that. I think that's his max right there, yards that he's going to throw for. He's probably going to be more in the 150 to 200 range, I feel, or 225 range. So, I mean, I really don't trust Cam Newton throw the ball, but I think he's going to be a solid option as far as scoring touchdowns goes. So, I mean, Cam Newton, that could be a starter right there. I'd still go with Alex Smith over Cam Newton and the rest of these quarterbacks that I've talked about too. Alex Smith, I think that's going to be the guy to start this week for sure. So, yeah, I think Cam Newton is going to go for a couple of touchdowns. But, I mean, like I'm saying this, but like this is just me, like my gut right here. You know what? Nah, stay away from Cam Newton this week. I might I shouldn't be second guessing myself because usually when I do that, I usually end up wrong. But I think I'm going to stay away from Cam Newton this week. I think he's going to play well. I don't think he's going to put up too many yards. I mean, he's going to put up at least 2 touchdowns, I feel. But I mean, like I said, he could always go for a couple of interceptions. I mean, he could always, I'm staying away from Cam Newton this week. If you're doing the daily fantasy, go with Alex Smith. Go with Alex Smith for sure. And I have no doubt about that. Alex Smith is the only quarterback, honestly, I'm like sure that's going to have a great game, I feel. So yeah, if you're thinking about picking up Alex Smith, go with him. And as far as Cam Newton goes, he's probably going to go for a couple of touchdowns, but you just can't trust him with his accuracy. He could always go for a couple of interceptions also. So if you want to be bold and go with Cam, go with Cam. Let's see, as far as the running backs go, Jonathan Stewart, that might be like a third or second option on your fantasy team this weekend. I mean, I trust Christian McCaffrey way more than I trust Jonathan Stewart. I think Christian McCaffrey's going to have a big game this week, too. He's been playing well all season. I think he's second in the league among rookies in receptions. He might be first. It's either him and Alvin Kamara at number 1 or number 2. And I think just McCaffrey's going to play well. Let's see. Last week he had 40 yards, 5 receptions, only had 14 yards rushing, no touchdowns. But I think that's going to change this week against New Orleans defense. I think Christian McCaffrey's going to play a whole lot better than he did last week. So let's see. Yeah, like I said, Jonathan Stewart, I mean, I really don't trust him too much. I just don't think that he didn't even play last week either. I think he might be injured too. So, I mean, Jonathan Stewart, if he comes back, I still don't trust him. And Greg Olsen last week didn't play well, only 1 catch for 10 yards. He had that one game where he had over 100 yards, I think it was, and a touchdown. But, I mean, he just really hasn't been able to show that he can do the job. But I think maybe this week, like I said, if you're scrounging for a tight end, I don't think Greg Olsen should be worth that much. So, I mean, Greg Olsen might be the guy to pick up this week also. And let's see, as far as the receivers go, Devin Funchess, I don't trust really too many people in Carolina's offense now that I think about it. You know what? No, it's going to be a high-scoring game, I think. So, obviously, I mean, Devin Funchess is going to have a good game. I think he'll go for around 50 yards and a touchdown maybe. So, that's a good third option right there, a second option if you need someone. And Cam Newton, he's going to go for at least 3 touchdowns. I'm gonna stick to it. Cam Newton's going to have a big game this week. He's going to go for 3 touchdowns. Probably might throw a pick, but I don't think he will. And I don't think he's going to throw for too many yards, but I think he's going to rush for a lot of yards too in this game. Same with Christian McCaffrey. I think he's going to have a big game in this one. So, if you need a running back, go with McCaffrey too, especially if you're doing a PPR league. And like I said, if Jonathan Stewart comes back, stay away from him. And Greg Olsen, I think he could have a solid game, but I mean, he's really you can't trust him really too much. And as far as it goes for New Orleans on that side of the ball, Drew Brees, I don't know how I feel about Drew Brees. Like I said, I'd still go with Alex Smith over Drew Brees. Alex Smith is the quarterback to play this weekend, I feel. And Drew Brees, I mean, he hasn't thrown for too many touchdowns this season. I mean, he usually throws for 1 or 2, but I mean, that's not really what Drew Brees, that's not really the Drew Brees we're used to. And that's all because now you got a guy like Alvin Kamara and you got a guy like Mark Ingram who've been playing really well. Those are must starts right there. Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, he's dangerous running the ball and he's dangerous catching the ball too. So, I mean, Alvin Kamara, that's a must start right there. I mean, Leonard Fournette and Kamara would be a solid pickup right there. Solid 1-2 duo. Same with Gurley and Kamara. I mean, anyone you put with Kamara could be good. You could even go Mark Ingram and Kamara, and I'm sure that they're going to give you good production. Mark Ingram's more of a put his head down, run through you type of guy, and really no teams have been able to stop him so far this season. And I think Carolina's got solid running backs in Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis, but I just think I like Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara a whole lot better, but I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, I think that they're going to be good, solid fantasy options this week, and same with Michael Thomas. That's been Drew Brees' go-to, because like I said, Drew Brees doesn't throw for too many touchdowns, but if he's going to, it's going to be to Michael Thomas, and Michael Thomas is good for at least 12 targets a game, I feel. So, I mean, he's going to bring in at least 8 or 9 receptions, 8 to 10 receptions, and probably around 80 yards to 100 yards, and maybe a touchdown or 2. So I think Michael Thomas, that's a good solid start right there, especially. Maybe you can go with a guy like him and pair him with a guy like, let's see, who's a good receiver option this week? I mean, there's not too many, I don't feel. Maybe you go with a guy like Michael Thomas and Devin Funchess, I feel. That'd be a good solid pairing right there. Throwing a guy like Cooper Kupp if you're playing PPR, those would be solid guys right there. So, I mean, Michael Thomas is going to have a good game. And, I mean, as far as both of these defenses go, I mean, I'm expecting it to be a shootout. More of like in the high 20s, maybe low 30s, I feel, just because I feel like both these offenses are going to come out and bring it, especially New Orleans offense. You don't have to really worry about them too much. But like I said, I think Cam Newton's going to come out and play well. So, I mean, both of these offenses I think are going to do well. So, I mean, you really can't go wrong with either players on both sides of the ball. Like I said, stay away from Jonathan Stewart if he comes back and he's coming off of his injury. And I'd stay away from Greg Olsen right now too. But like I said, as far as New Orleans offense goes, Drew Brees, I mean, you can't go wrong ever picking up Drew Brees. Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram are going to be solid pickups. And then, like I said, Michael Thomas is going to be a solid pickup. And I'm staying away from both these defense. Now that I added them both in there, let's rank them. I'd go Jacksonville at number 1, then Kansas City's at number 2, LA's at number 3, Buffalo's at 4, then I'll go Carolina's at number 5, New Orleans at number 6. I mean, I'm ranking them low, but that's just because I think the other defense are going to do so much better. And let's see, at number 7, I'd have Atlanta's, and at number 8, Tennessee's. So, I mean, I think right now Jacksonville and Kansas City's are the top 2 defenses to play this week, and maybe LA's possibly. It all depends on how Atlanta's offense does, obviously, but I just don't trust Matt Ryan and them. And like I said, as far as this Carolina Panthers and New Orleans Saints game goes, I think it's going to be a really high-scoring game, so you really can't go wrong with either starting any players from either offense. But like I said, just to recap, I think Alex Smith is going to be the best quarterback to play this weekend. I think he's going to go for a big game. Travis Kelce, that's a must-start. Tyreek Hill is going to have a big game, I feel. I'm staying away from Tennessee's offense. I really don't trust them too much. Like I said, Kansas City's defense is going to be a solid starter this week. I think Marcus Mariota is going to go for at least a couple interceptions. So, I mean, obviously that's going to require Kansas City's defense to force a couple of turnovers. I'm staying away from Julio Jones this week. I'm also staying away from Kareem Hunt. I think Tennessee's rush defense is going to play well this week. And Mohamed Sanu, that's a solid third option right there. Devontae Freeman, that's a good pickup. As for the Rams, I mean, Todd Gurley, I think that's a must pick up right there also. Robert Woods, a Cooper Kupp. I mean, if you're desperate for a second or third option, then yeah, those are the guys to go to right there. I'm staying away from Jared Goff. Not sure how the second-year player is going to do in his first playoff game. And as far as Buffalo and Jacksonville, that's pretty much the game you want to stay away from as far as picking up players on offense, unless you're picking up Leonard Fournette and like D.D. Westbrook and Marquise Lee are guys I mentioned. But if there are other options you think that could do better, go with them. And like I said, as far as Buffalo's offense go, I'm completely staying away from them. Don't think they're going to do too well. But both defenses, Buffalo's and Jacksonville's, I think could be put up some solid points this week. And like I said, for Carolina's and New Orleans, I'm going with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Those are going to be solid pickups. Same with Michael Thomas and Drew Brees. And I think Cam Newton's going to go for a big game, and so will Christian McCaffrey. And Devin Funchess would be a solid second option too. So if you're thinking about picking up any of them, go for it. I think they're going to have good games. But that's going to wrap it up for this for today's show. Like I said, I'm looking really forward to these games going on this week. So we're going to have to wait and see. Hopefully I didn't let you guys down, and hopefully the people I said to pick up are going to be solid options. So we'll see about that. But like I said, that's going to be it. Thanks for listening to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and we'll be back next Thursday. So to stay tuned, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.